irony is that my name is Noxolo but ke Mosotho. So clearly my name does not introduce my heritage. So yesterday was my birthday. Yay! It was a day filled with love and kindness and lots of cake. So I managed to smile for most of the day, even though as any responsible adult, I was working. And today, 9 years ago, on the 19th of September, 2009, my older brother passed away. It was a Saturday, and I had planned a huge picnic. I had friends from PE and family from Joburg come through to celebrate my day with me. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. Later on that night when we got home, my mother told me the terrible news. The week before, my brother, Abuti Tsidi, had been involved in a head-on collision on a windy road in Lesotho. There had been some traffic on that particular stretch of road, and people, in an effort to bypass the traffic, managed to hit him head-on. He was fine though. He got out of the car and decided to have a conversation with the driver of the other car. And that's when a fight between them broke out. Eyewitnesses say that they were really scared and didn't want to intervene because they feared that a gun might be taken out and they might be hurt in the crossfire. So everybody let the fight continue. He was later found in the boot of his car where they had left him to die. Abuti Tsidi had been murdered, and I was numb. I felt a bit of that numbness return this morning when I spoke to my mother about sharing the story with you tonight. Up until this morning, I was under the impression that Abuti Tsidi had been involved in an accident on a quiet stretch of road, and that he was left in the back seat of his car. I was unaware that there were eyewitnesses and that there were people who could have stopped the fight. Up until this morning, I used to say that Abuti Tsidi passed away. He didn't. He was murdered. He died. There was nothing peaceful about it. There was nothing polite about it. And so, as those eyewitnesses continue with their lives, I have lived the past 9 years of my life in sort of grayness. Because a life without him is a life that I never quite imagined. He was everything to us. Like literally everything. I remember when I threw a tantrum and I threw my flip phone across the wall. For millennials, just turn to someone and ask them what a flip phone is. I threw my flip phone across the wall. It broke in half and I was literally holding the screen and the keypad in 2 different hands. Abuti Tsidi fixed it for me. Whenever my mother needed something to do with her car or her house, Abuti Tsidi found it for her. When my cousins from the US came over and needed a tour guide in the motherland, Abuti Tsidi drove them around even though he completely hated speaking English, so he was upset for most of the time. He really was everything to us, and even though he was 14 years older than I was and lived 200 kilometers away, I don't think I've ever loved another man as much as I loved him. He would also buy me like these really weird looking clothes that were always bedazzled, and I just didn't understand where he bought them, you know? But it was nice that half the time they didn't fit anyway. So that was okay. He was a father, he was a husband, and apparently he was a really great house DJ, but I don't know, I like Black Eyed Peas and Beyonce, so like. And then 2 weeks later, the day before his funeral, I finally saw his car. You could actually see the indentation of his head on the roof of the car they had smashed it in. And again, I realized Abuti Tsidi had been murdered. So, on the day of the funeral, on our way back, we had to drive from Buthabuthe to Maseru. So it's about a 2-hour drive, including all the time it takes to like dodge the many, many potholes. There are many, many potholes. And the main road in Lesotho is called the A1. So it's a very complex road. Imagine driving in Bree Street, like downtown Bree Street, and there's just all that commotion. So the highway, even though it's the highway, it only has one lane either way. And on either side, there are houses and shops and taxis stopping in the middle of nowhere because, you know, that's what taxis do. And somehow, at some point, this stretch of road just kind of clears all the chaos and you see the most beautiful mountain scenery. You might even catch a distant mud house somewhere. It's gorgeous. And just when you think that's it, you get back into this Bree Street looking thing. So we were driving through one of these Bree looking towns when I was sitting at the back of a panel van with a friend of Abuti Tsidi. And I heard my mother scream from the passenger seat. I'm not entirely sure whether the thud came first or whether we stopped and then there was a thud. I just somehow remember getting out of the back of the panel van and seeing a tiny 3-year-old body lying in the middle of the street towards the left side of our bumper. We had hit her. Tears just rolled down my eyes. I thought at that moment that I'd been all cried out. I mean, I had just buried my older brother a few hours ago. I was in the middle of writing matric prelim exams. I hadn't slept in weeks. I was just tired. I didn't think that I could handle any more pain or stress. It was a lot to deal with. And I honestly don't remember seeing the crowd of people surrounding the car, but I'm assuming that there was. But I remember seeing my mother dressed in black, her fair skin without a glow, darkened by sorrow. I finally heard her crying. And it was at that moment that I realized this toddler might just be okay. Her older sister rushed from one side of the street to get to her because she had decided that she's going to cross the road and tell a 3-year-old to go back home. Obviously, that 3-year-old followed her across that street. And no matter what my aunt did, she just could not avoid hitting her. So we had to take Ntabeling, get her into the back of the panel van, and rush her to hospital ourselves. because in Lesotho, there aren't any ambulances that you can wait for. And so with a screaming toddler at the back of our panel van, we got to the hospital and we were told that besides a few bruises and a lot of shock, Ntabeleng would be okay. I wasn't too sure if I would be though. Yesterday was my birthday. And today, exactly 9 years ago, on the 19th of September, 2009, Abuti Tsidi died. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, knowing that somebody could have done something to change my entire life. When I thought about telling this story on Sunday, it had a completely different ending. And after the conversation I had with my mother today, I'm not entirely sure I can say things like, it gets better. I'm not entirely sure I can say things like, I've healed. And as much as people say that time heals, I'm not entirely sure if 9 years is enough to say that I'm okay, that nobody did anything. So yesterday was my birthday. Today, Abuti Tsidi died. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I do know, though, that I go into tomorrow with 2 amazing little brothers gifted to me by my amazing partner. So I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know the conversations that I'll have that will change my life forever. But in 6 years, I'm going to be older than Abuti Tsidi was. I'll try to make these years count.
Thank you, Noxolo, and I get in there. Right. You see, it happens to everybody. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story with us, Noxolo. And this is what Hadithi is about. You get to get a glimpse of other people's lives and not make assumptions of what's happening in other people's lives. We all look beautiful tonight, but you do not know what joys or what pains we carry within ourselves. And with that, we've got a first for Hadithi.